What was it like when you saw that wire transfer hit your bank account?
It was a very powerful moment, to be honest with you, because neither of us had much growing up. Not that we didn't have anything. I think having less money in America, you're still like you're still first world, right? I've seen a lot of other areas in the world where people actually are poor and stuff. So I don't say that anymore, but we were challenged coming up. There wasn't a whole lot of extra cash or anything like that. And for me to know that my family is taken care of if I leave tomorrow, other than just life insurance, like this is real. I still, until probably around 2020, was only paying myself about $60,000 a year, even though there was a ton more revenue there. And I just kept putting it into people, marketing, all that, which allowed us to write 500, 600, 700, 800 items was our highest we ever got to. So really the journey just kind of kept compounding, kind of how just interest does, right? Like it just keeps going. So you start at $1 million, jump to 3, 3 to 6, 6 to 12, and it just keeps moving. And really we moved from 2018, I believe we were around 8 or 9 million. And then by 2023 at 40. If we wouldn't have made those moves early on with bringing that revenue in through acquisition, I don't think we would have had.
Welcome to another episode of the A1 Experience. I've got a legend. He's somebody I've looked up to in this space. I've had him on the show before. Mr. Justin Slocum, thanks for joining us today.
Heck yeah, man, you're welcome.
So if you guys don't know Justin is a former State Farm agent, employee of an agency that turned into an exclusive agency owner with Allstate. If you are a part of Allstate or just the captive world, exclusive world, you probably know Justin. Justin built a $40 million fully remote agency before exiting quite recently.
Yeah.
Like the last
June
last year. And it was a fully remote operation, which is, pretty impressive. We'll dive into that. And now he's working on a couple other things. He's in the hiring space, the broker space, and amongst a bunch of other things. But we'll dive into that. So, Justin, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, man. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. So, talk about, I know in the last video we talked about your story. Let's just talk about your agency days. Sounds like forever ago, but it was only a year ago. Talk about just how you went from, you started scratch, right?
Scratch was $750,000 in premium that I purchased. So
Okay.
Scratch with that back then.
Pretty much a small book. And talk about the progression of how you went from essentially zero to a $40 million agency. And
it starts out with that. You jump in and day one, I think both staff quit because you got to have enough staff. And it was kind of crazy to see that ride. So I actually ran that agency for the first 3 or 4 months by myself, just because as anyone knows, if you're in the Allstate space or insurance in general, your margins are tight in the beginning. So I had to ramp up really fast. So I was working 7 days a week doing that. Literally 6 months later, buy my next agency. So able to jump in, bring in some more premium. It's only like $1 million. So just kept seeing that. And that's what really got me into that scale mode, right? So that money came in. I said, okay, well, I was already doing fine without that. This acquisition I can just use for marketing and people. And I kept that mindset and it just kept building and building and building. And so every time they allowed us to buy, we would just buy. And so eventually we only bought $500,000, $1 million at a time normally. And it ended up being about 12 or 13 million that we purchased. But that allowed us to just really kind of scale that growth with putting that money back into our people, because I still, until probably around 2020, was only paying myself about $60,000 a year, even though there was a ton more revenue there. And I just kept putting it into people, marketing, all that, which allowed us to write 500, 600, 700, 800 items was our highest we ever got to. So I would say that's really the journey, just kind of kept compounding, kind of how just interest does, right? Like it just keeps going. So you start at $1 million, jump to 3, 3 to 6, 6 to 12, and it just keeps moving. And really we moved from 2018, I believe we were around 8 or 9 million. And then by 2023 at 40. And so it's just, if we wouldn't have made those moves early on with bringing that revenue in through acquisition, I don't think we would have had the cash flow to keep pumping the sales in.
Yeah.
And then Allstate, actually, we got a huge win there with 2019. They started changing where the new business comp structure was so heavy for us that we could just pump right into that. And I was already profitable at 10 and 10. So when they threw out 25 and 17, and now it's 37 and 25 or something. So it's pretty amazing.
So sounds like you just kept reinvesting.
That's it.
Just
kept pumping it in.
didn't sound like you got shiny object syndrome and kind of started looking at other things.
No, I one big thing that I'll tell you that people ask me about, like I drove really old vehicles, stuff like that all the way. I had a 10-year plan. In 2020 was when I was going to start buying, which ended up being a weird time for the country for me to start buying stuff. But that was when I bought my first new truck, all that kind of stuff. So
Wow.
it was pretty cool then. But you know, I guess that's one thing just to tell people is like, look, keep putting back, just pump into your business, and then eventually you'll be able to do whatever you want as long as you don't start spending too fast on yourself.
Yeah. So you were how old when you started your agency?
Started would have been 28 years old.
28 years old. And 11 years later, forgive me if I don't have these numbers correct, but I believe you exited at 39.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Yep.
And essentially, you know, maybe didn't retire, but got a taste of a little bit of retirement. You're not wired to just not do nothing.
Right.
So I'm pretty sure we'll talk about what you've got going
Absolutely.
on. But that's a big achievement to have a eight or nine figure, I'm not sure what it was, exit at 39 years old. I think we always talk about that kind of stuff growing up. It's you know when we're younger, like I'm gonna retire at this age or what have you. And you actually did it and you executed, and I really admire that, especially because of how you live your life. You're traveling with your family, you're experiencing things, and it's really admirable. So I guess talk about that. Was that always the goal, or
It wasn't always the goal. I remember looking back and laughing now, but to Ashley, I remember when I got the contract with Allstate, I was like, all I got to do is get to about $2 million in premium and I can pay myself $100,000 a year. Like that was the goal. Yeah. And there was no other goal at that point. And then as it went, I started thinking and understanding how things would compound and just build for you. And so I was like, man, if I could get to X amount of money, whatever that was at the time, I could actually retire by like 40 years old. And it was like this energy that just hit me that I'm like, that's actually achievable. Let's do it. And that's what I was building the whole time. So me and Ashley had come up with basically, I mean, I'll tell you exactly what it was. It was 10 million. We were like, if we could walk away with over $10 million at whatever that point is, if that's 35 years old or 55 years old, we felt like that would be enough that we could, from investments or what have you, live the kind of life that we wanted without it being stressful, travel, do what we want, and then go do some other things that really do make us happy. And so that's what our goal was. And so we go through that entire time and I'm building that, learning a lot about buying and selling agencies as I go through that process, because it was really kind of like flipping houses. Just you're buying some that are kind of broken down, maybe somebody that just wants to walk away, take that one, fix it, and have it prepared to be able to sell later. And really, I guess that was my only way for me to jump out of that, was to sell and get that big exit, was the goal the whole time. And so when these guys approached us last year about, it was probably about a year and a half ago, about buying the agency, that was my main goal. I'm like, are we going to have that after we sell? So you have to sit down and talk with your accountants, your CPAs, attorneys. Just like, I don't want to be in a bad position after this because it pays us really well. We're able to do a lot, but it would be nice to pull the chips off the table and then even come back and do it again. That's the cool thing with Allstate, is I could start right now and go do it again, and even with a lot more knowledge. So that was really our goal. Was
in the same state though? Because I kind of worry about that.
I would do the same state.
I worry about if I were to exit, I'm pretty sure there'd be non-compete, non-solicit, or non-compete, all that stuff, right?
Yeah. So I think that's.
But I'd have to move out of Nevada.
No, probably not. Like it really depends on the person buying it, right? So the cool thing with Allstate is I can't hurt them. You know, I can't go take that whole business and pull it into my Allstate. So I do have I think it was 36 months.
Oh, that's if you're staying with Allstate.
That's right. Yeah. So I actually negotiated that. So while we were talking, and that's just something you have to think about as you're going through a contract, when you do exit, what am I going to do next? I would like the ability to come back and do this again. And so that was what I negotiated. It's like, hey, I don't mind, you know, I won't go be a farmer's independent, stuff like that, but I do want this opportunity to come back. And they did allow me that. So I could do Allstate right now again, as long as I don't go touch that book. Now, when the non-compete, non-solicit I signed was against those customers, right? So I'm not going after those customers for 36 months. I wouldn't do it. Those guys took care of me. There's no point in doing something like that. So, but I could go back in the same state.
Yeah. I think my concern is I have a heavy presence in Vegas. So it'd be hard for my customers to be under somebody else that I sold to, and they're just like, looking at
Yeah,
the like,
it
Nick, why am I not with your agency?
very possible. That's a different thing. I didn't have. I didn't have a whole lot of social media presence with that, at least with my customers. So
Got it.
definitely something to consider if you ever, are looking to exit at some point whenever you're ready to retire and things like that. I think that would be something to consider.
Yeah. It sounds like it was the intention all along. You had this kind of, written, and you spoke
Yeah.
to your family about it. And so that's kind of what contributed to it. It happened kind of just as you had wished. And that's awesome. Just setting that
Yeah.
intention. So one of the questions that I have is, what are some of the things that you look for and advise, because you're in the business of helping agents buy or sell their agencies.
Right.
Let's talk about first, like what do you think a buyer should look at when they're buying an agency? What's a good deal? What's a bad deal? What are the mistakes that they've made? And then we'll pivot into maybe selling.
Yeah, absolutely. So buying, whether you're getting into it new or you're already an Allstate agent, really the opportunity that is available to you. So it's very rare to get that opportunity to always be able to buy. So when you buy, you're going to hear a lot of people like me and my buddy Craig are just like, buy. If they're allowing you to buy, buy. But that does come with an asterisk. Like, it's not just throw money at it and just buy whatever. You should go through and see, okay, does this make sense for the market? Can I get it under market value? Is this agency in trouble, but I know I can fix it because I'm good in this state, or what have you? So I would say the opportunity, number one. Can I buy? Am I in a good financial position to buy? Am I staffed up? That's probably the best piece of advice a guy gave me before I got my second agency. He said, make sure your first one is well oiled before the second one, because if it's not, it's just going to be a bigger storm.
Yeah.
And that was pretty good advice. He was like, go ahead and just staff up. If they tell you need another 3 people, go ahead and get those 3 people in now into your agency. Go ahead and take it on the chin for that payroll, get it built up, and then go. And so every time I bought, I did that. And so whether you're starting out new or not, you got to be staffed up. So, and honestly, it's probably about 5 people for every $5 to $8 million that you buy in premium that need to be able to service and sell to support that growth. So that's really what I would say is the opportunity. Can you get financing? Are you in a good position financially? If you're running out buying a bunch of Escalades and all this stuff that aren't assets, like true assets, banks are going to look at you like, I don't know if I want to take a bet on you for $2-3 million, And so that's where I would say always be ready with your financial balance sheet, basically, of am I in a good position to buy when that opportunity presents, and being ready. Because I think that was the best part of where I was with what I did, was there was never a time that I wasn't going to be in a position to buy. From a bookkeeping standpoint, I wanted my books within 30 days. I hear a lot of stories, even helping people sell now. It's pretty amazing how many people haven't filed taxes in the last 2 years. They don't even know what a P&L is, and they've been an agent for 30 years, stuff like that. Yeah. So keeping those things engaged and ready, understanding how banks talk. If it's your first time, go and get pre-approved. Don't just throw something on paper and say, I'm going to buy an agency without talking to a bank. It's no different than buying a house. You might think that you want this big, beautiful agency. Well, if you don't have the finances to get it, you're just going to waste everybody's time. So I would say go get pre-approved with a bank, talk to whatever carrier that you're wanting to go with, whether that's Allstate, Farmers, Independent, what have you. Make sure that you're prepared for that. And then staffing. If there's good staff, there is value in that. They're not guaranteed to stay with you at all. I've learned that. I did make some pretty crazy moves in the beginning where people would just quit. That was too aggressive for them. And I had to learn, like, they're coming from an environment that wasn't aggressive, and me just throwing them in day one kind of felt like sink or swim, versus saying, hey, this is what we do here. Let's go through this road together, make sure they onboard just like a new outside buyer or an outside agent would be coming to our agency. So I think stuff like that would be the biggest thing. The opportunity, staff, good opportunity in the states we're learning, right? So many states, whether you're independent, Farmers, Allstate, are having to put in some really unique risk mitigation with what they'll write, what they won't write. So like right now, if I was looking to buy again, I'm probably going to be a little bit shy to go into California,
right?
Or New York
Florida.
Right now.
How about Florida?
Florida, it's a challenge state right now.
Nice place to live.
If I was there, right? Yeah, it's great to live. So if I was there and I understood the market, probably wouldn't be that scared. I know a lot of guys in New York and California right now, they're bullish in their areas because there's opportunity. It's a buyer's market. When you got troubled areas like that, if you can get them dirt cheap, they're going to go get them.
Yeah.
Knowing that it will get better. I think
Right.
we've all seen from the insurance side of things, they don't lose money very often. When they do, they get it fixed. They get it fixed fast, and then it's just going to go through the roof again from an opportunity standpoint.
Yeah.
So I do think in the next few years that these agencies, although we're seeing some troubled areas and really challenging for people to grow or scale, that those will change in the next couple of years where it's stabilized out. It feels like it did 3 years ago, and their values are going to be double what they are today.
Kind of like finding a flip
Yeah.
that's in prime time area, just
Absolutely.
the worst house on the block kind of thing.
Yeah.
I like that. Tips on selling. Somebody's planning, ramping up towards exiting. What advice do you give them? I know transparently me, sometimes I guess I'm a little less worried because I have a strong personal brand. I know a lot of people, social media, like I'm sure I could find somebody to buy some of my books.
Absolutely.
You know,
Yeah.
But
there's always
sometimes that mindset creeps in like, oh, what if I can't find a buyer? Like
Yeah.
like what if I'm stuck with this thing? So talk about
Yeah.
how to sell.
I'd go back to finding your number. You got to have a number. Got to know what you're going to do next. If you're just selling one of your books, there was a mindset in mind that I was just going to sell one every other year and just keep doing that. And then I got a pretty big offer to just sell it all. It's the only reason why I ended up selling those. But in that, I knew my number, going back to what me and Ashley sat down and talked about. As we moved forward with that, I made sure my taxes looked good. I will tell you that is probably one of the biggest things I've learned with people getting their values almost destroyed on their agency is because they don't have any profit shown. So these banks are
Personally.
or within their
both,
agency, within their
wow.
agency. So, there's a handful of really good banks in the industry that work with just insurance agents that are always doing loans on insurance agencies. So if they can see an agency is just not making money, there's not a ton of value they're going to add to that. So they're just going to pull it down. There's always a price. You'll always have a number for it. And like for Allstate agents, we have a backed up contract backed up by Allstate that they'll guarantee. So it's at least that over a 2-year period, right? Well, even that can be a tax challenge. So that's something people should talk about their CPA. Like you might cost yourself 18% or so in taxes just by taking that versus selling to someone at the same price. So that's kind of the floor I tell people. This is your floor. The only thing that adds value to that, being top in your area, growing that agency. Every year it's growing by 20% in premium, policy count, whatever that is. If they see growth over a 3-year period, bank's going to feel very, not necessarily safe. I don't think there's ever safe, but they're going to feel very good on that risk to say, okay, this agency here, as long as there's no craziness, the person's going independent, all this stuff, they want to come after the book, they're going to put it at a very high market price because it's growing, it's staffed up, the person's leaving, retiring. That's probably your top dollar.
Yeah.
Then you say to yourself, well, maybe I don't want to go all in, put all this marketing in, all that. Be reasonable with your price. You're not going to get the same as the top market.
Mm-hmm.
If you're like for Allstate agents, you're sitting on an emerging book that maybe it hasn't done anything. It hasn't grown. It's actually going backwards.
Yeah.
That's how a bank's going to look at it. It's how a buyer's going to look at it.
It's kind of a trade-off too, right? Because if you were just ready to move on to the next thing and maybe you haven't sold it yet, but you decide to just trim your staff, stop your marketing and just kind of coast, that you may, I guess it's a trade-off because you could make some good money
Absolutely
doing that route versus beefing it up and then selling it. So it's like,
absolutely,
what's that happy median?
It really is your personal satisfaction, what you're doing. If you don't have something else to do and you enjoy insurance and you're ready to pull your foot off the gas, that's okay. Like I will tell you, I've talked more people out of selling their agencies with just talking through that. They're like, man, I can't be a lead. I'm just not growing. Like, okay, well, let's look at your cash flow. If you didn't spend all this money in marketing, but you just kind of stayed right here and stayed stable, you're kind of keeping it really just break even. If your premium's kind of breaking even, more than likely the carrier's going to take care of you and bump that up. You could sit like that for 10 years and have a little bit better peace of mind. Your mental capacity will be better because it's very hard to run and grow by 20 to 30% every year as you get bigger and bigger because you got to find more marketing areas. more staff, more support staff to support them as they're growing. So I would definitely say more people should sit down and say, rather than just throwing my hands up, selling this thing for cheap, look at maybe keeping it for 3 years, but pull some of that stress stuff down. What is stressing me out? Can't find staff, can't find good staff, can't find marketing. Okay, well, you're still good at it, right? Yeah, I'm pretty good at it. Well, you've got 2 people in there that you like, that you work well with. Just do that for the next 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Because most don't have enough, they haven't built their agency large enough, or they still have a ton of debt that there's not enough money to walk away. I was talking to a guy the other day, he was going to walk away with about $300,000-$400,000. And I was like, man, what if you just kept it for the next 5 years? You enjoy insurance. And I was like, you don't have to run this hard to have very little revenue coming in. And so that's whenever, I ended up talking about it. Andrew actually called me and talked to me about it, because he was like, did you just really talk that guy out of not selling? I sent him to you to sell,
Yeah.
So that was one of those neat moments for me, because I want to keep my integrity with that. Like, hey, if you're not in a position to go mentally do something else, stay and do what you're good at. Like, do that. Don't just get out because the market's challenged, because it is tough right now.
Yeah, then you're going to twiddle your thumbs and just wait to get back in.
That's it. Absolutely. And they may not let you back in.
And you've seen that happen too.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things I want to talk about, and that's really good advice on buying and selling. So for those of you guys that are looking to enter or exit, hopefully you got some tidbits there. You were one of the pioneers, I would say, my opinion, of remote hiring and staffing.
Right.
You ran a fully remote operation. A team of how large did you grow to?
All the way to 42 when we exited.
42 staff.
Yeah.
Here's a quick question before I jump into that question. How did the staff respond to the new ownership?
That's a fun one. It's challenging. So you really got to mitigate that, because you become such a family. Even though it was large and even though it was remote, I did my best to make sure our culture was there. It's probably one of the things I did personally good at. I was really good at making sure they understood who I am. They could come to me. We didn't have this hierarchy that I sit in some tower up there they can never talk to. So did that, knew their kids, all that stuff. So I knew.
You even took them to Mexico.
I did. So that was kind of part of it, to be honest with you. Like, I knew that this exit may happen in June. Prior to that, about a year prior, because if you're going to sell a big one, it's not going to happen within 4 or 5 months. It's going to take time to really just the bank's got to be comfortable with all this stuff. The buyers have to be comfortable with it, and they should do their due diligence, right? One of the guys that purchased my agent, there was 2 guys that purchased my agent. One came and sat at my house for like a week, just watch me work, because he'd never thought about being remote. It's like, what do you do all day?
Yeah.
So he literally sat behind me and watched me work all day. So I knew that would be a pretty important thing. Some of these people worked for me 6, 7, 10 years. And so for them, it was going to be more like a family member was leaving and just kind of leaving them. And so I had to think about that. And so that's why we did Mexico, because the first part of the agency was going to sell February 1st. And I wanted to tell them in person. And so we came out, we did all that. And that's when I announced that we would be selling part of the agency then, and then maybe the other part would be going then.
It's a good way to receive the message,
Yeah.
A couple shots of tequila makes it go down.
Maybe that's what it was. That did definitely help. But so did that, and we sold the first part off to Brian, and he's been a great agent ever since. So it took time, because I really think people were upset because they enjoyed working for me. And that's probably one of the best tips I can give people. Make sure your job's fun. Make sure it compensates them well. They can go spend time with their family. I always tell people that I don't want to hear that you didn't make donuts with dad on Friday. Like, go be with your family. And so they love that about me, because they'd worked at places, some of them at other places where that wasn't an opportunity.
Yeah.
So I think that was frustrating. I did make sure both buyers understood that. Like, this is how I take care of people. Right. They're going to expect it. And if not, then they're possibly going to leave. So that was it. I mean, I did that. And it's about 30 days out usually when you should do it, because you need to make sure everything's actually going to go through before you create this storm in your agency. Because once they do, it's just an emotional thing, like shock. Like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And so I've learned over helping other people, like, help them understand to stay, because they're more valuable with that agency than they are going to some other agency just out of the blue because they want to quit, because it's change. As long as their compensation staying the same, stay where you're at and see what happens, because you're going to be a ton of value to that person that just bought that agency, because they may not know Allstate, they may not know insurance. you're able to help them and grow with them too, and still make it a good opportunity. So
Yeah.
some took it pretty emotionally, to be honest with
Gotcha.
you, but I did. The ones that have been with me a long time, I made sure that they were well taken care of for their loyalty and
Yeah.
just helping me build what we build, because you can't build it on your own.
Right.
So took care of them, and man, both agencies are rocking along now. So I think some staff have moved on and done some other stuff.
That's
But
natural.
it is. It really is. So that's really it. I would say for the most part, people took it well. I had two that were really connected to me very closely that almost felt like I was kind of leaving them. But at some point you have to exit, and that was what I tried to explain to them and just tell them, look, I really want you to understand this is going to be good for y'all in the end. You still have a great job. I'm doing this for my family. It was a family goal for me, and that's where we're at. So
Gotcha.
Ended up being fine.
So one of the things I want to pick your brain on, and it's something that I need to do a little bit more of. I, for the most part, am a in-person office. The team likes coming here. You just got to tour the office. We like being here in person. I like showing up in person. And it's funny because I'm millennial. I'm social media. You would think that I would be with the times of remote hiring, like everyone else. But I'm going to hybrid model this a little bit. And so what can agents do to have more success with remote hiring? And it kind of leads into something that you've been doing post agency
Yeah, absolutely.
as well.
So I would say it's going to be weird coming up. I think there's a lot of changes in the industry that I even have to, if I go back into insurance at some point, what I would change to be different. I love remote, and I love them being all over the country. The government is going to bring in a lot of TPCA rules that are going to change how we get access to customers, leads, things like that. I truly feel there's going to be a need for that in-office feel, or at least in-state. So one thing that I was able to leverage was having people in other states work at different times, say 5 to 7 at night. You could buy cheaper leads then. Could buy cheaper leads on Saturdays and Sundays. Get access to people faster at those times because they're off work. They're able to talk about it, things like that. So that was really good. So I leveraged being in other states. I think now there's going to be a little bit of going back to some of the COI and networking stuff that we used to do. So when I started out, we would go to these car washes and sit there and just get quotes, pay for their $20 car wash if they get an auto quote with us, right? In person. A lot of my staff couldn't do that because they might work in Ohio and I'm not appointed there. So now my mindset will probably be different with remote. Remote in the state that we write in is probably where I'll try to stick so they can do more of that, build their own network, build their own centers of influence, because I was worried. I did so much of that myself and I didn't really teach my staff how to do it. That was probably a learning mistake for me looking back, because everything's hindsight 3 months after you sell your agency. I really wish I would have went all in on teaching my local people that lived in states that we wrote in to be better at finding realtors, mortgage brokers, all those things to add to what we were doing. So, and really to diversify it, because, well, you buy leads, you see how the lead game is changing today. I'm out here for LeadsCon, and it is insane what's about to happen. Like some areas, some of these calls are just going to go through the roof on what they're costing, because they've got to be one-to-one consent now. Right. There's no more of this sell it to 10 agents, all that kind of stuff where they could do it at 50, 60 bucks. It may be 200. So some of that's going to change. That I think is going to have to change our mindset. Remote can be absolutely phenomenal for you if you've got a good remote mindset. You're going to lose equipment. Stuff is going to break. You're going to have people. I talked to a guy yesterday, actually a big agent in Ohio, that person just hadn't shown up for 3 days, hadn't logged in, and then just randomly shows up. And he's like, we got to let them go. You can't just let them hold you hostage like that, because you need people. So you're going to have the same unique challenges. I had that same stuff in office. I'd have people just not show up for a couple of days. Right. And so I think the mindset around remote and how many people are doing it today, it has created this storm of everyone kind of feels like they're being left out. But I will almost challenge you on that now, seeing and feeling at least my opinion on what's coming. I would love to have some people, at least within my state, maybe not necessarily all in office, because you do run out of capacity, right? Like my little office only had 4 office spaces. Right. There's no way I could have shoved more people in there. And that's kind of how we gained access to more people. Bring them in, let them go work from home. Yeah. And so I wouldn't be as concerned with everyone needing to be remote. just letting people have more opportunity to do some other things within your own state that maybe aren't all smile and dialing all day long,
Yeah.
which is great. And you need that. But I do think I would have supported my staff a little bit more with helping them build their own centers of influences and networks that eventually maybe they want to buy their own agency in 10 years. Now they've got a good network of people to do that with.
I encourage that all the time.
Yeah. So, I mean, and I've seen it. I was asking you about your people out there. I think it's phenomenal. And I think what y'all are doing will really set you apart from where a lot of agencies have gotten almost hooked on leads, right? Like you have to do it. And as you scale and grow, it just keeps ramping up. That's it, absolutely. And so I think that it's good from that standpoint. I do think that remote is phenomenal when they know what they're doing. It is very hard to train from green. I will tell you that. You really have to have a dedicated onboarding or training person on your team to do that, unless it's you in your office and maybe there's only 3 or 4 of you and you can spend that dedicated time with them. But as you scale and you get a larger team, maybe that's not the case. And you need somebody that's going to be with them so that they're not on this island out here and it just becomes unsuccessful.
Yeah, for sure.
So
that's funny you say island. I literally have somebody, our first fully remote staff that wasn't in office. He's literally on the island of Hawaii. So
oh, good.
it's funny that you say that.
That's awesome. No,
but he's literally on an island, and I've had to get on my team, my managers, a couple times, like what is he doing from this time to this time? Have we checked into that? You know, like, or are we just too busy with the staff that we have here in office?
Right.
So just that growing pains of managing both. One of the things that I know a lot of agents require if you're going to be fully remote is experience, whether that's your company's experience or just insurance experience.
Right.
You second that?
Yeah, I do. I really do. Especially if you don't have a good onboarding process for green agents yet. I do think if you've got that, you can hire as many people as you want. It's going to become more challenging when you're looking for just licensed, experienced people, because now you're competing with the big boys. Geico, Allstate, State Farm is all hiring these same people at home to do the job that you want them to do. And they've just got a ton more money, more benefits, all these things. So you're challenged to, how do I convince this person that my opportunity is better than the one? And you're doing it through online and through an Indeed ad.
It's easier in person to sell.
It is. It really
they
is.
They get to walk through the office. They get to see the environment.
That's right.
They, and that's so.
So I do think that that's all going to become more challenging. And I'll tell you, when I started doing it in 2016, it was amazing. I'd tell somebody, hey, you could work from home and get 2 hours of your day back, and I'm $1 less an hour. That's it, because that was in Forney, Texas, was where I started. Small town. People would drive past us to work in Dallas for a few more dollars an hour. But then I said, hey, I'm paying $12 an hour, whatever it was that our base salary was then. They might have been making 15, but I just told them, you don't have to sit in traffic for an hour each way.
Yeah.
Get to be at your kids' baseball games, all this, like, absolutely. Let's do that. So forever, I had all the way until 2020, honestly, maybe even through 2020, I never had challenges hiring people. After about 21, people got smart. I mean, it's amazing how humans adapt so fast. Instantly, people became remote and doing some crazy stuff, hiring all over the place. And I seen it immediately that I had to start paying more than what I would pay in person. And I get challenged that a lot. Like, well, I should pay them less because they're remote. Like, you can try, but it's not going to work, because now they know their worth. They know where they're at. This industry is challenged. So if they've got 3 to 5 years experience and they actually know their stuff, they are of value to you.
If I were to ask you, which industry has higher turnover, solar, door-to-door solar, or insurance, what would you say?
Man, I would assume insurance, but I almost want to say solar. But
I thought it was solar. It's actually
Okay.
insurance.
Gotcha.
It surprised me.
That does surprise me.
Yeah, I thought it was the opposite.
And I'll touch on one more piece with that. If you're just looking for licensed people that have experience out there, guys, you're trying to take them away from somebody that works in, like, say, my agency, right? Like, they're happy. They got things going on. It's very tough unless you just throw some 25 grand more a year base or something like that. They're not moving for $1 or $2 an hour anymore like they used to. And so I really make sure, biggest thing is make sure your opportunity is something you can sell to them. So like with us doing recruiting for people, if it's not, when we interview that agent or that company that wants us to hire for them, if the opportunity doesn't sound very great, like, hey, we pay a $2,000 base and you might make 1% on your sales if you sell 100 policies, and we don't offer benefits and you don't get any PTO. You know what? Probably best we don't hire for you.
Yeah.
I need it to be something we can also sell. And so agents need to do the same thing and challenge themselves. What can I do to make sure my opportunity is amazing for people? And I will tell you guys, time off. Time off is, people just want to be with their families now. It's not the 50s where you work 12 hours a day all day and you don't have that much time. Like, they actually want to be with their family more, maybe even working 30, 35-hour weeks versus 40 to 60-hour weeks. So you got to hear that and say, how can I do that? And we would have all kinds of ways that they could earn PTO every week on top of the PTO we already gave them, which would push them. They'd push hard for 4 days, take Friday off. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So
Got it. Yeah, it's good to know. Let's talk about one of the questions I wanted to ask you. Let's talk about the exit first. What was it like when you saw, that wire transfer hit your bank account? I just want you to
I
just
can
talk
tell you
about
exactly where I was. Pretty crazy. We do a Texas Parks and Wildlife. My buddy Kel put this Texas Parks and Wildlife kid event at our lake where they were going to come stay in tents and all this stuff. And so that literally was happening the day that we're going to head down there. And so we got to go pick up my kiddo from school, and then we're going there. And so it hit, and Ashley are just loving on each other, just like, man, this is awesome. This is real. This is really happening. We start driving, and I get a phone call, and it's from a banker I've never talked to at the bank. And I'm like, what is this? And it's, hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm president here at the bank, yada, yada.
They saw that money go through. They're
absolutely,
like,
absolutely.
Let's give them a call.
Never had a phone call like that in 11, 12 years, whatever, working with them. And I'm not knocking them. I just thought it was funny because I'm looking at Ashley. I'm like, who is this guy? And he's like, hey, what are you going to do with this money? And I was like, honestly, I don't know. I was like, I assume I'm going to throw it in some real estate stuff. I got a few other little business ventures I'm doing, but I assume some real estate. He goes, we need to protect it. And of course, I'm in sales, right? So I'm thinking this guy's selling me, yada, yada. But the truth was, I needed to figure out how to actually have it FDIC insured, right? I'm an insurance guy. I need to make sure I do that. Had never had that kind of money, so I didn't know it was a problem, And so he was able to kind of talk me through a product that they offer that would allow me to have access to this money, also have it FDIC insured for all of it, which I'd always thought you can only have up to 250, maybe 250 each, maybe 500 as a couple, something like that. And he was able to put it in these accounts. It ends up being like 50 accounts at all, like 250 or whatever, that they have it all in that you have access to, that's also paying you, I think it's 4% interest on your money as it sits there. So I would have never known that, didn't even know that was a thing. It's a new bracket of stuff. So that was my first experience with it. And so it was overwhelming, but it was amazing to know that now I can walk. We want property, land to buy. And so we were able to actually make cash offers on land, which I've always thought about financing, right? Like, that was a new thing for us that we've
get a
never
better
had.
deal too, right?
You do, and right now, because interest rates are high, you can actually have a little bit more leverage on that piece of property that you're wanting to buy, because it's like, hey, pay cash and be done in 2 weeks. We don't need inspections, whatever it may be, that I can move a lot quicker than the old days. If I might need 60 days, I'm dependent on this appraisal coming back perfect, or I'm not getting this house or this property or whatever. So that has all been new. But man, it was a pretty emotional day for me and my wife, to be honest with you, because neither of us had much growing up. Not that we didn't have anything. I think having less money in America, you're still like you're still first world, right? Like, it's not,
Right.
I've seen a lot of other areas in the world where people actually are poor and stuff. So I don't say that anymore, but we were challenged coming up. There wasn't a whole lot of extra cash or anything like that, and being able to do whatever you want when you want. And so that was it was a big day, man. I'm not a crybaby or anything like that, but that day I probably shed maybe a tear, maybe some sand, came through, but it was an awesome moment for my family. And
Somebody was cutting onions somewhere,
That's it. And you got a kiddo coming, it's one of those things as a dad, it was a very powerful moment for me to know that my family is taken care of if I leave tomorrow, other than just life insurance. Like,
right.
This is real. They can do whatever if I'm gone tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I'm so passionate about my family that's what I wanted. And that's really was even part of the exit.
Yeah.
I was working.
How was that capital gains tax?
It's going on right now. So I got to pay it now. So
boy.
So it is what it is. You got to factor that.
30%.
It's 20. So
20.
yeah, it's around 20. And that's all after debt, and I did carry some of it. So you get to pull that out as well. So it was lower than what we initially thought, but it's still tough to cut the check, but it's cool to cut it too.
It's also, I have a buddy going through this too. he just filed his taxes and he sold his agency last year. He doesn't have as many of the write-offs anymore either. So he
Yeah.
doesn't have staffing and
Yeah.
marketing. And so I know you're probably navigating through that too.
Absolutely.
That's awesome, man. And I definitely want to come see your lake. Never
got
met
to.
somebody that
You
owns a
got to.
lake, so I think that's super cool.
Yeah, it's fun, man. We bring people out like the kid thing. You know, they came out and had an amazing time, and we'll do that as many times as the Texas Parks and Wildlife want to do it because it was just a blast, and the kids were so thankful to come out and experience that lake that has a ton of fish in it that they can actually catch something, because you go to a big lake and you may not catch anything all day.
Yeah.
You know, so more of that concentrated area. So we have fun with it, and we'll do more of that stuff. That's what we're looking to do. I would love to even buy. Actually, on Monday, we're going to look at another place that's a little bigger that we could actually have people come to, more of a destination place that'll have, 10 or 15 cabins on it around a lake. This one has a 30-acre lake as well. So if we could do more of that stuff, that's fun to me, but insurance will never leave me. I mean, I'm at LeadsCon and I don't even do leads, right? And, but I love staying connected to the industry because it's where all my friends.
You've got a couple things going on as well. You've got a hiring service that
Insurance
I'm currently in the process of using. You've got your brokering. So you're able to help buy and sell agencies. So if you guys need help with any of those, I mean, one, you always need help with hiring. So that's forever. I think you're the one that told me that. Hiring and marketing. It never ends. Hiring and
those
marketing.
are the only two real challenges in our industry, in my opinion. I think everything else is, if you're a decent business person, the rest of it's pretty easy.
Yep.
It's just math in most areas. Staffing, taking care of your staff, making sure that they've got a good opportunity, finding those leads to support them with, or teaching them how to do what you're doing with social media is amazing. I literally watched a manager coach a person on their social media earlier, which is so new to me and almost foreign to me, right? I don't have a TikTok. I don't have any of these things. So it's neat to see that you're supporting them, because they could use that in whatever, if they ever even left insurance.
Yeah. I tell them all the time, the power of a personal brand is incredible. You don't realize this. You might not use these social media platforms, but you've built a strong personal brand. Your cowboy hat. You asked if you could wear the cowboy hat, and I was like, I would be upset if you didn't.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
a part of you. It's a part of your brand, and you've built a strong personal brand on Facebook, and that's what's making life after the agency a little bit easier for you.
Absolutely.
People know who you are, and plus, just how you do business and how the impact that you've left on people. But I tell my team that all the time, that you build your personal brand, build it under my watch. I'll invest in it. I'll help. I'll provide you the videographer. I'll provide you the editing. I'll have a friend even my new employee post it for you.
Right.
That brand's going to go with you no matter where you go.
Absolutely. You touch on that in your interview process when you're talking to them? That's a benefit here.
Probably ought to. Yeah,
I would. Think about what it costs to have a videographer. Most people can't do that. Yeah. And today everybody wants to be a creator. Yeah. My kid wants to be, he looks up to you. Yeah. And so I just, that's the kind of stuff that I think is of value in agencies like yours, like where you're actually teaching them something else besides insurance. Insurance can become boring and mundane at some point. Yeah. You're making it fun with social media, and now they can do whatever they want. You can
go into real estate. Like, there's so much you can do.
Yeah.
It follows you.
Well, it's like me with Agency for Sale. I start buying and selling agencies on my own for my own personal benefit. People start reaching out. Hey, how are you doing this? How are you buying them? How do you know how to do it? I'm like, oh, well, I'll help you. And I did that for free for a little bit. And eventually I was like, man, I can turn this into a business and capitalize on that. And that's what I did. And I challenge myself to make sure that it's not just about the money. I really enjoy helping people buy agencies and sell their agency so that they know, like, maybe they're not ready today. Maybe their number doesn't make sense for where today is, but these are the things to fix. In a couple of years, give me a call back. We'll try and sell it then. Yeah. Get this stuff fixed. Or like buying. I love right now, Allstate's coming out with a scratch contract again in Texas, which they haven't had in a while. The people that are like energized to do that, because Allstate takes such good care of you on a scratch contract in the beginning, that seeing that energy of like an LSP or maybe an office manager that's ready to take that move, jump into that is fun to me. Like it is just so fun to see them go through it. And they're nervous because, they're taking out a loan for a couple $100,000 or something to make sure they have cash flow. It's neat to be the person that can help lower that anxiety. Yeah. Because I've done it so many times that it's their first, they don't get it, they don't understand. It's like, hey, this is what you do. Here's how we're going to lay it out. You need to have people by this point so that when they start day one, they're ready to go. And it's not how I was. Like, I didn't even know how to take credit card payment with them. They taught us all kinds of sales stuff in training. I'm not knocking Allstate on that, but it was a ton of just sales stuff. And I either missed it or didn't catch how to take credit card payments, all these things that just really were stressors over those first 60 days versus me really attacking that contract day one.
Yeah.
And so that's what we try and help buyers with now.
Yeah, that's awesome. And the key word I picked up from that was you enjoy it.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like work to you. And that's something I'm finding in my zone with social media. It's like, I enjoy this stuff.
Yeah.
It's like it's second nature. And so I love hearing that because, it's just going to make that next venture for me that much more fun and interesting.
Yep.
So awesome, man. One of the last questions that I have for you before I let you go is, and I may have asked you this the first time, but I'll ask it to you again to see maybe something's changed. The A1 stands for of the highest standards, of the highest qualities. And I like to ask every guest, what are 3 standards that you live your life by? What are those 3 for you and why?
Man, number one's family first. I try to base everything around that as far as my standard. From that, integrity, just really keeping your integrity. I teach my little boy that all day long. Like, you cannot get it back. You lie, you cheat, you steal, all those kind of things. It's very hard to earn that name back. And then the last one is just accountability, whether that's in your business or your personal life. Like, you really have to have something that you're looking forward to, some kind of goal, whatever that is. Me and my wife, we have a goal of owning 640 acres in Texas at some point. That's 1 square mile. And we've had that goal for 20 years. We're still not there, right? But we know how to work up to it. And we've sat down and backed into what are the prices in the area that we want per acre. Okay, we're not there yet. We're going to have to do more to get to that level. So I think just having some goals and accountability is that last one that you just will take care of everything else. But the reason I have the goals and accountability is take care of my family. And I tell people that when they come in, we actually talk about that in the interview. And I say, look, this is what's important to me. It's like, you're going to have times. It's like, but the only way you get to go spend all this time with your family is actually putting in work at work. So there's too many people that I see, and not knocking social media. Y'all are using it for work, but there's a lot of times when we were in office that people were just kind of scrolling to scroll. They're not actually using it for their network or building their brand. They're just scrolling to scroll. And I'm like, man, why? If your kid was sitting next to you, like, you wouldn't do that. Like, you would actually work hard. And so that's really what I challenge them with in our interviews. Like, look, we're family first. You'll never have me say you can't go do something with your kid. But there's going to be times you might need to hop on your computer at 7 o'clock at night and finish a quote or close something out because you had to take 3 hours off to go be at that PTA event or whatever it may be. And I try to help people understand that when they come work with us. But as long as you keep those things, if you have a family that, I'd say most people watching this probably, have a family or want to have a family at some point. You put that first and you make those decisions so that you don't mess up too much, take too much risk. Sometimes you will have to take risks in business, but make sure it's a calculated risk that won't hurt your family.
Yeah.
And then that last one or the second one being integrity, man. I truly think that's why I still humbly say I have a good name. Like, I think about those things. How does this impact Nick if I'm doing something for Nick or helping Nick? He's got to know the truth about this. If there's something gray, go ahead and get it clear. Because if not, then we'll probably have problems, right? Like later on, you're thinking one way about me, I think the other way, and it's wrong because now my integrity's been jeopardized because of something I said or did to you. And I don't want that. And so that's why those are my 3 big things. Yeah. Family, integrity, and accountability.
Yeah. Well, I love it. I just want to acknowledge you for, that first one. You said family. One of the things I've said it, I started us off with this, but I love the way that you live life. It seems like you fully experience it. You've been traveling, something I'm big on. It's like all this grind.
Yeah.
I'm definitely driven, like unreasonably driven, but it's like, for what if I don't go and see the world and give back and help and bigger than me kind of thing. But you've always been, if I've ever needed to reach out to you, you've always been there for me. And I think I'm not the only one that you've done that for.
Right.
So just appreciating the guy that you are. I haven't known you long, but you've been nothing but good to me in my
Good.
journey. And like I said, you're definitely a mentor of mine. So appreciate you
Yeah,
for everything
absolutely,
you've
man.
done.
And I love you having me on and going through this, and because I've learned a lot from you. Being able to see you buy in another state and stuff like that. That's really cool.
You were one of the people that helped solidify that decision when I went to Oregon.
Yeah.
So I called you, and after that, I sent it.
Yeah.
I was like, let's
I
go.
remember one thing I said, I was like, just put one foot in front of the other, man. Like there's so much to think about and so much anxiety doing that. And so it's really good to see that because I never got to buy in another state. I did sell in a couple other states, but that's a different challenge that I haven't had either. Like actually having a physical location in another state. So that I love that we've connected and been able to do that. And I will tell you, that's probably one of the crazy things 3 months after selling your agency, you find out that about 80% of your friends are insurance agents, and so, and really trying to stay connected with that, because now I'm not in the know and getting the emails from your carrier and stuff like that. And so, I've enjoyed all that. And lastly, on you talking about traveling, that was one of the key things on me selling my agency. I wanted more time with my family. I actually had really started to be, not that I didn't take them places, like I was traveling and doing some other stuff, but I truly wasn't that present. And that's tough, and it's hard on your family. My kid's 10. And I'm like, man, this is not fair for him because if I'm at his ball game, I'm throwing off an email, grabbing a call, whatever. And so that has been cool to actually be all in.
Yeah.
Now, if I went back and could tell you the things that I truly would change if I came back is more management, more middle management, having some kind of person take off more of that delegation stuff that you should be doing. I took on way too much. Looking back, to where it's like, hey, I need to still be able to do this stuff while owning an agency. You see all the people. I mean, they own Amazon, things like that. They're not stressed about all those things all day and the small things that I was. So that was a lot of hindsight for me, and even hearing from my managers. So my managers after the fact really just did whatever I said. I didn't give them a lot of room to go and build on their own selves. So like Veronica mentioned, I would have loved to go to actual manager meetings that aren't insurance based, like go learn and be coached as a manager in other areas, learn how to deal with people and stuff. And it was like a light bulb. I'm like, why didn't I ever do that?
Yeah.
So I would just tell people that that's one thing. If you're building out an agency or any business, start learning how to delegate those things, shut off, be present wherever you're at, because if it's after 5, there's probably not much you can do anyways. Throw the phone to the side and be present with your kids and family if you got kiddos, for sure.
Yeah. Well, lastly, how can people get a hold of you if they wanted to reach you? Whether that's for buying or selling an agency or hiring services or just need some advice, how can they get a hold of you?
Absolutely. So real simple, you've got info@agencyforsale.com is our buying and selling brokerage as far as if you need help talking through it. And honestly, guys, if it's not even a fee-based thing, you're just asking a question. There was a guy from South Carolina earlier just asking me a question about something. I don't charge for that. That's a pretty easy one just to kind of talk through. But if you need to hire me to help you buy something or sell something, that's how you're going to get a hold of me. If you need help hiring, we're doing in person as well as remote throughout the country. There's not many places that we don't. We do build a custom profile around what you're trying to hire for and make sure it's a good fit when we send them to you. You can reach us at info@insurancesteamwork.com there, and we'll take great care of you. Outside of that, reach out to me personally. I've got my Facebook is just Justin Slocum. You can reach out. If you shoot me an email to either one of those emails, I'll send you my cell phone, and we can connect that way anytime, text, phone calls. Like Nick said, I really will try to get back to you every day. I don't know if that's a disease or what, but I will try to get back to you. We're very fast. So yeah, that's how you can reach out to us. And we hope, all you guys, whoever's building your insurance business, following Nick, man, he's just a wealth of knowledge himself and what this social media sector is going to do over the next couple of years. So I'd be following along with Nick. If he's got something he can offer you to try and build your own brand, you should be doing that and work with someone like that. So I just appreciate you having me on.
Appreciate you. Yeah. If you tuned in this far, thanks for watching. Hit that like button, subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one.